It's good to see your faces. My name is Jeannie Kirkhope, and I'm the co-coordinator of Catholic Committee of Appalachia. The other co-coordinator, Michael Iafrate, is actually up in Wheeling, not here today because his wife is ready to pop any minute now, so they are not here. But I wanted to introduce a couple people from our board of directors. Eddie, right here, is our vice chair, and who just walked in, Matt Kosadar, is our chair. We also have Donna, our former chair, right back here. She's also a member of CCA. We are a very small organization, 48 years old actually in existence. We've been around forever, but we have a small number of members. Molly's another one, thank you. Molly's here, all across the region. So maybe we might have like 200 people in our group, but kind of progressive, radical Catholics who are way into all the same kind of stuff the environmental groups are into. So I want to thank those folks, and I want to thank our co-sponsors, Bishop Stowe of Diocese of Lexington and Ohio Valley Environmental Coalition, who, and all of you, of course, who helped us make this event possible tonight. So I'm just going to do some housekeeping. The kitchen's going to be taking the food back pretty soon, so if you need to, grab your last bits of food there. Beverages, I think, will remain. If you need the bathroom, they're right across the hall, out the door, both men's and women's, on either side of the water fountain. And finally, these centerpieces are yours to take home, and the water droplets. So there's not enough for everybody. I mean, there's plenty of water droplets for everybody, but maybe you need to draw straws if you want to take the mason jars. But just don't make them plastic straws, of course, because we're all ecological here. So today, one last thing I should say. The auction items over here, really cool stuff for really cheap. So check those out before you go today, and help us raise a little money for the Chris Hale Environmental Award Fund, which will go towards cash awards to future recipients of the Chris Hale Environmental Award. So today, we're here together to remember and celebrate. First, we're here to remember and celebrate the life and works of our friend and colleague, Chris Hale, the founder of Friends of Water. And second, we're here to celebrate and remember how faith-based and environmental groups have worked and are working together in Appalachia to protect creation. I'm not going to go into depth about either of those right now because that's why our speakers are here tonight. But I do want to say one gift Chris Hale gave to us while on this earth was the reminder that none of the environmental issues we address, none of the battles we fight against industry will make a difference if we don't come together and work as one. And the one issue he was completely and utterly committed to, water, is a perfect symbol for that message. That incredible natural, I'm going to get all verklempt, so I apologize. That incredible natural element of water binds us together in so many ways. Humans, as we know, in fact, all living beings are made of mostly water. Our bodies are vessels for this precious resource, and it's needed simply for our existence, for our survival. Water flows through our lands in the form of rivers and streams as Earth's life force, the planet's coursing veins. And pools and ponds, lakes and oceans, all that water, all those waterways around the world, and every drop within them are connected and exemplify for us how we are, how we can, and how we should be connected to. Just about a year ago, a couple weeks after Chris's funeral, I got a call from his dad, Bernie. There you are. He thanked me for Catholic Committee of Appalachia's activism on behalf of the environment and for working with his son. He said Chris had been brought up in the Catholic faith, and although he wasn't a practicing Catholic at the end of his life, his passion and dedication for the environment sprang from his faith tradition. Bernie had hopes that we somehow may be able to keep his son's legacy alive. Although I never met Chris in person and never even heard his voice, I knew him through his online presence. Friends of Water and CCA shared articles and posts about events and petitions. Then, after the chemical spill in Charleston in 2014, Chris and I worked together closely with others through Facebook Messenger, emails, Google Docs, to spread the word about the Healing the Waters Vigil. In an online frenzy, Chris and I got 134 cities in 17 states and around the world to join us in solidarity with their own water vigils. Sorry. In June of 2016, Chris was instrumental in helping some of our CCA members deal with the big floods that summer. Kathleen and Brian DeRuin's Alderson Hospitality House was filling up with water, and Chris helped them move out what they could within the time they had. He also spent days with them cleaning up the devastating wreckage in the aftermath. The DeRuins and we are eternally grateful for Chris's direct service during that time, and we know they weren't the only ones he helped in that chaos. There are countless stories out there about Chris protecting water as much as he protected people from it. And no doubt we'll hear more of those today. So of course I told Bernie CCA would be honored to help him keep his son's legacy alive. I talked to our board of directors and we decided on a special award to be given in Chris's name. Initially, we figured we would give it out at our annual gathering each year, but ultimately we decided that people of Chris's caliber don't come around that often. Instead, we'll take nominations on an annual basis, and CCA's board of directors will research nominees and vote every year on the possibility of a recipient. If someone is chosen, that name will be announced in CCA's spring newsletter, and the award will be given at that year's CCA annual gathering. The Chris Hale Environmental Award is reserved for individuals who emerge as widely recognized by both faith-based and environmental groups for keeping Chris's legacy alive by filling these criteria. Number one, having shown outstanding activism in the protection of Appalachia's waters, lands, air, plant, and wildlife. Number two, exemplified Chris's desire to collaborate with others. And number three, demonstrated Chris's tireless commitment to hands-on service when people are most in need. In our conversations with Bernie over the next several months, it became clear that Bernie himself would be the perfect and most appropriate person to receive the first award in his son's name. The board agreed, and Bernie eventually humbly accepted. Unfortunately, though, he was unable to join us for this past year's annual gathering in September, but that's what led us to today's special event, dedicated specifically for the purpose of this award. So Bernie, we are grateful for you reaching out to us with the pride of a father, even in the depth of your grief, to ensure no one forgets the incredible passion, commitment, and devotion Chris has toward keeping water, our life force, clean and safe. Your life's work of raising Chris and supporting him in his efforts in good times and bad is inspirational. You moved from Boston to Kentucky to West Virginia and found friends wherever you've gone. In difficult times, you've been able to rely on them wholeheartedly in return because you've been there for others in their struggles and challenges. Your working career has been tireless and is ongoing even now at Tamarack. Your Catholic faith continues to sustain you as a member of your parish in Beckley and an old choir boy. And your morals continue to guide you without judging others. Rather, you display a clear and tangible love for all your fellow humans, and your warmth and compassion exudes the message that we are all more alike than different. We are all connected. We are all one, and no mistakes or downfalls could keep anyone out of your fold. Bernie, we all loved, respected, and admired your son, Chris. And there is that old saying that goes, our children are reflections of ourselves. Because of the absolute truth of that statement, Catholic Committee of Appalachia is pleased and proud to present to you the first Chris Hale Environmental Award Everyone, please join me in congratulating Bernie Hale. That's for you, but also we want to give you a Blanco class vase marked at the bottom by both Walt and Andrew Blanco. This is a cobalt glass, which is the same color as Chris's gravestone.
Yes, it is, and it's very appropriate. I was a glass buyer at Tamarack for 20 years. I'm now just in sales, but I'm familiar with the design, and it's a very nice one. I appreciate that very much. I wonder if someone would take a photo on my phone for me. It'd be good enough to do that. I meant to leave it at the table there. And by the way, I think if let's pull that up. There you go. And do you know how to use it? iPhone?
Better than me.
Yeah, I'll just thanks. And then you can hang on to that. Yeah. Thank you.
One more. Okay.
And a comment now, if I ever need someone to do my eulogy, I think it'll be Jeannie. That'll work really well. Yeah. And also, I kind of wonder, I said, hey, I'm not much of a public speaker. I had an experience as a kid. I was in Walpole, Massachusetts at the Bird School, and I think it was in the 2nd grade, and I got up on the stage and I just flat froze, couldn't say another word. I'm thinking, from then on it gave me a real disability, so this may be a little torturous for you, but here we go. And, Chris was a reader, and he would have been happy to have such distinguished writers here having the discussion that you'll hear. I brought these women's books home myself from the bookstore at Tamarack. Currently, I can tell you in the bookstore at Tamarack we have Denise's Storming Heaven and Saints and Villains, which are two of her better selling books. Of Anne's books that we have now, we have Strange as the Weather's Been, and also Me and My Daddy Listen to Bob Marley. That's another good seller of hers, I believe. We don't necessarily carry all the books of all the authors. They try to focus on top sellers, for reasons of space and all that sort of stuff. But I will be pushing them to carry more titles from each of these authors. And so we'll see how that works. I'm not currently a buyer. I was a buyer for 20 years and kind of demoted, but I enjoy selling now. And I tell people I've got a tough job. I get to talk to ladies with money all day, and it's a real tough job, but somebody's got to do it. So, and now another thing I want to mention, part of this event was personally sponsored by Bishop John Stowe of the Catholic Diocese of Lexington. He is a Franciscan, and he is a fine appointee of Pope Francis. Bishops are appointed personally by the Pope. He has an interest in the environment, and he's been very kind in communications with me. I sent him a thank you note, and he took it on himself. He called St. Mark's School in Richmond, and he got them to pull Chris's cumulative record file, and you'll see over there Chris's images for each year he was in grammar school. The Catholic Church does a tremendous job of us keeping track of people, and it's a great source for genealogists. But anyway, they do a good job of that kind of stuff. Today I received from him a very kind personal note. It happened that I have a brother who, my flaky brother, who is in Chicago, who I never thought would be able to pay his own rent. When he left his 20s, became a very successful dental technician, then owned his own dental laboratory and can now buy and sell me. But anyway, my brother, though, earlier in his career was in the Franciscans, and had studied to be a Franciscan, and he was at a place called, I can't remember the name of it. It's a Spanish name. Plaza de Paz y Bien. It's a Casa de Paz y Bien. That's the name of it. Okay. It's in, at my age, I forget things. It's in Scottsdale, Arizona, and it's a retreat house for the Franciscans. Well, what happened to my brother was, what they have going on there, they had retiring, priests would have reunions, you know, that had graduated from seminary together. And I think my brother thought he was going to be taking care of the poor there, you know, and apparently these priests, when they get together, they play cards, have a few drinks, and sometimes get in fights. But anyway, you know, when the guys get together, you know, that sort of thing can happen. But anyway, it wasn't exactly conducive to vocation, but it just happened that he eventually left Franciscans, you know, and then went on to do other things. But it turned out, I've been to the Casa de Paz again to visit my brother years ago, and Bishop Stowe told me he's been there many times. You know, it's a place on a smaller version, something like this, you know, where, at that time also they did have a good mission. They were, Scottsdale was a fairly affluent area, and they were, it was kind of a dry cleaners for wealthy alcoholics, so they were, you know, helping people that had problems. So, you know, that was a good thing. I'll try to get moving here because I know you don't want to listen to me all day here. The one thing I wanted to tell you about is, well, let's thank Bishop Michael Bransfield, the bishop of this diocese, under whose auspices CCOP works in West Virginia, and this fine facility operates under his authority. The first time I think that I spoke with Jeannie, I had high hopes of, you know, being heavily involved or more involved with Friends of Water and the kind of activity that Chris was involved in. And frankly, I don't have the media skills or the savvy, you know, to work with Facebook and, you know, all the means that you all are very comfortable with. It was kind of difficult to get involved, and so his phone was tied up for a while with police investigation that was going on, and I thought in the end he had appointed certain editors. It appeared that David Adam Coffey, who was making most of the postings, was doing a pretty adequate job. I mean, it was the kind of information that I could never come up with. It seemed very professional. There were other names I can recall: Jamie Lee Smith, Jason Lockhart, and these are people he appointed, and in the end we kind of left it in their hands. I'll mention a couple of other people that were involved very early on with Friends of Water. He'd appointed me as kind of an agent. I think he was maybe physically in Florida at the time of the water crisis. He was working on some water quality issues down there while I was there. But an early person involved was Dave Bassett, who's sitting right over here, and I appreciate him being here. He was our treasurer. When we get small donations, I had set up, I think he had the account. I'd set up the postal box and, you know, was kind of the go-for, but when small checks came in, I'd send it to Dave, and he kept things going financially, and I appreciate him being here especially because he was involved in the beginning. There was a Noah Changa, who was here in Charleston, who was a black activist, and Noah is here. Well, I'm sorry I didn't get to talk to you earlier. Yeah, but she was here right from the beginning, and we had a legal beagle right there. And since that time, we've had the Kevin Thompsons and people, and I've mentioned him after a while, but I'm so happy you could make it. Noah, you have a radio show, I believe.
I have a podcast that Chris was on, yeah.
And a podcast, right. And she keeps pretty busy on the airwaves. And I remember a very nice interview that you did with Chris, and we appreciated that very much. and that's something that kind of kept him, you know, with visibility. You know, it was very important. And he did reach out to, you know, affiliated organizations, you know, people that we stay in line with, and she was a great ally right from the beginning, and we appreciate you being here so much. There are people here too, you know, that really keep things going. DL is here. You know, she keeps that logo out there. She's an activist, I think, in every liberal cause in the state.
I know we are liberal down there.
Out front, very visible, and has been very helpful in trying to get me to, you know, try to get Friends of Water revitalized, you know, through the internet and so forth. And I've been very slow to get into that, but anyway, you know, she's been an ally and a friend, and especially with Chris. I really probably would have preferred the award be just given to Chris alone, and his name posthumously. I really don't think, you know, I deserve it from the standpoint of my activism. At the same time, I'd have to say that I'm very interested in his personal legacy, and I cannot think of a more terrific honor that he could receive than an ongoing award of this type that'll continually, you know, remind people of his work. Probably the best call I made in connection with his legacy was when I called Jeannie, and then she brought this whole thing forward. Give you a little background on perhaps some of his early influences, and I'll try to, you know, summarize it, but you might be interested a little bit in his mom and I. And his mom is a sharp lady, and I met her in New York. I bounced back from Catholic high school in California. I went to Georgetown University, went to night school, worked days. It probably was a little bit over my head. It was very popular to take Russian at that time, and I was kind of a little over my head there. But it was quite an experience. I got to sing at the Georgetown Glee Club, and you know, it was a nice opportunity to grow up. And I was 17 when I got there, and I stayed there a couple of years. Went back out west, worked in banking for a while. My mom had cancer, died young. I helped. My dad was out of work when my mom died, and he had to go overseas to pay medical bills. We wish we would have had Obamacare then, and because we had to sell the house because of medical bills. And I was able to move in with my two big brothers. I was working at that time after the banking business I worked for TWA for a while, and I got my two kid brothers through high school while Dad was overseas. And then I headed to New York City. I got a job in the advertising business, and I was actually became an account executive with McKenna Erickson. McKenna Erickson at that time was the 1960s. It was actually the Mad Men days. And the television portrayal of the offices at that time and everything is very accurate. I was assigned, because I'd worked in banking in California, to the National Advertising Program of the Savings and Loan Business, and we developed a theme called Pay Yourself First. Anyway, the boy's mother, Chris's mom, her parents had died young. She'd attended Elizabeth Seton School for Girls. She had a mentor there named Sister Christopher. Her sister had taken over the family luggage goods store, and this Sister Christopher kept her in boarding at the school and enabled her to get another year or two of business education at Elizabeth Seton. I know at least one of the Kennedys went to school there, Joan Kennedy. That would have been Edward Kennedy's first wife. That's the one that went there. But anyway, she was managing the office of a design studio named Ampersand when I met her. Right at that time, all of a sudden, I got an offer from my client in Washington, which is a financial trade association, for a job with them as a vice president. Well, not initially, I think assistant vice president or something like that. But anyway, I became vice president of a trade association in Washington. We were married on Capitol Hill. We're very close to Capitol. We lived on Pennsylvania Avenue. Anyway, we got in a position a couple of years. She'd had a small inheritance, and we were able to just quit our jobs and travel in Europe for 7 months in a VW camper, and it was quite an education. But anyway, after that, I thought about what I really wanted to do, and I didn't fit in with the banking people. I wanted to do something that had social significance, and I got a job with the Community Development Corporation in Berea, Kentucky. And in Berea, you know, we had people that we worked with, mostly that were with nonprofits and had come there with cause-oriented organizations. And particularly people that I worked for, I'd gone to work for a community development corporation named JobStart. Our focus was creating jobs in Appalachia. My first boss was a guy on the left here, and that's actually me on the right with a little bit longer hair. And that's Chris. And a little girl reaching out to him was Kimberly Martin, and they were born a few weeks apart. And Kimberly now is a doctor. Her dad and her mom, those people were some of the most dedicated people I've ever known. They were associated with mountaintop removal people in 1972, and things were rougher back then. You know, they were a lot rougher back then. And anyway, we'd started a sewing factory. I did the marketing. I did a lot of travel, and but being raised with people like that in Berea, I think, was part of Chris's influence. The other thing going on there was that they were storing nerve gas between Berea and Richmond, only about 8 miles away, at the Bluegrass Army Depot. They actually had canisters in there in bunkers that they thought were going to eventually break down. They had, if you can believe this, rabbit cages outside of these bunkers out in the field, you know, and the security people would go around there with binoculars checking out, you know, to make sure the rabbits are still moving when they, you know, when they're on patrol out there. So it was pretty scary. But anyway, I took Chris and his mom often came with us, and we went to demonstrations at the gates there to call attention to, okay, yeah, I'll cut it. And anyway, we were actually there with Daniel Berrigan one time, a famous ex-priest that, you know, was an activist. So those are the kind of influences Chris had. So I'll cut it short. I you know, rambled in a way I didn't mean to do. What I'll do, I want to mention Kevin Thompson, who it was very important to Chris that he was able to work with Kevin. Kevin was successful in getting a settlement. He was a lead attorney in this whole deal of people getting a settlement here in the Canal Valley for the damages they received. Chris was instrumental working with him. And I'll cut to, since time is an issue here, in his later career, he wanted to focus on, he thought he shouldn't define himself as an activist, but rather as a public health advocate. He thought it went over better. You know, he thought he kept it focused on water quality as it relates to public health. And it was a lesson to everybody, you know, he thought if we are tagged with the name activist, it doesn't sound as good. You know, it sounds like, you know, tree huggers and, you know, the negative perspective that some people have. So he was careful in how he marketed himself. And I was going to go on about that, but I'll cut that thing short. I'll make a quick reference to thanking also Kevin for the fine eulogy he did at Chris's funeral, the Reverend Paul Wharton, my pastor, who gave a very nice sermon and is a good public speaker, the Bishop's Vicar in Southern West Virginia, who gave a wonderful sermon and gave the analogy of the little girl with a starfish. And then I'll read a couple of quotes. And one of these is from Chris's own Facebook. It was given to me by Jeannie McCullough in Northern Ireland. She wanted me to have this for use here. And that quote I'll read to you here. And it's from Chris's own Facebook. If you never search for truth, come with us, and you will become a seeker. If you were never a musician, come with us, and you will find your voice. In our gathering, one candle lights hundreds. We will light your path and give you courage, so you will open like a flower and join us in joyous laughter. Plant the seed of truth and watch it grow. When it spreads, its branches come with us and sit under the blossoms. Your eyes will open to the secret of truth. Rumi. And then from Mahatma Gandhi was one, be the change you want to see in the world. And I was going to quote from Pope Francis. I've got some of those here. Just go to, when you're on the web, when you're looking this up on the internet, just go to Pope Francis quotes on the environment. You'll run into a National Geographic article with some wonderful quotes. And I know in your literature there you have so many that you're familiar, your organization's familiar with, that you don't need to hear those quotes again because you probably already heard them. So, but anyway, thank you for your time, and I hope I didn't exceed mine. And thanks for your